Hello, boys and girls. We've got another edition of Matthew Buckley Talks music for you fine folks on the internet. And today we'll be looking at the Flamagra instrumentals released by Flying Lotus. This instrumentals edition was released last May, but the original Flamagra album was released 2 years ago in May. That album was definitely one of my top albums of 2019, like in my top 10 for sure. It really blew me away. And this instrumental edition is really great. But before we get into that, for those of you who might not know about Flying Lotus, or as his mommy calls him, Steven Ellison, he was born October 17th, 1983, in Los Angeles, California, to a musical family. His grandmother was a singer-songwriter, Marilyn McLeod. So that by association, extension, I should say, he's the grandnephew of jazz pianist Alice Coltrane. And he attended the Los Angeles Film School and Academy of Art University. He worked an internship. Apparently, I didn't know this until I was doing this research for this video. He worked an internship at Stones Throw Records during its early years. And around that time, in like the mid-2000s, he began submitting bumper music to Cartoon Network's Adult Swim programming blocks, which is where many folks in my age group encountered him first, I know for sure. In 2008, he went on to found Brainfeeder Records, which is, aside from releasing a lot of his own music on there, he's released many other associated artists on there, including Thundercat, who's one of my favorite bass players today. Flying Lotus has released, since he started putting out music, at least 6 full-length albums, 7 extended plays. He's produced songs for dozens of other artists, including Thundercat, people like Kendrick Lamar and Danny Brown, and the list really does go on. It's pretty unbelievable. And he's even, relatively recently been scoring, a handful of films: Blade Runner Blackout 2222, Perfect, the upcoming Netflix series. At least I think it's a series. I don't think it's just a film. Yasuke, about a black samurai. And he's even scored and directed a film of his own a few years ago, Kuso, which is a very unique film. But he's got quite a body of work. He's an interesting fellow. As far as the music, this instrumentals album here kicks off with Heroes, which it has a short, spacey, semi-spoken introduction, but the actual song jumps in with reckless abandon. It's an up-tempo beat, and there's liberal anime samples. I'll say that. It sounds almost like the beginning of some sort of crazy scatological party. Like that's the kind of visuals it gives me. I imagine some just things are starting to happen. Post-Requisite, the next track, to me is a prime example of electronic jazz. It's got the bounce and the attitude of hip-hop, the instrumentation and the eyebrows of jazz with the textures and tones of electronica. It's really unique. Heroes in a Half Shell, track 3, is a very short, jazzy electronic interlude. You almost feel like it's, carrying you along, only to kind of suddenly drop you into the faster-paced world of the next track. More instrumental. The first track to strip the original vocal performance back. In this case, a performance by Anderson .Paak. It's a solid head-bobbing hip-hop beat, perfect for, riding down the road, meditative car coasting, I'd say. It's not exactly feel-good, per se, but it isn't too heavy either, It's good stuff. It's just coasting along, very groovy. The next track, Capillaries, is much heavier, a bit foreboding almost. Dramatic piano really pushes a feeling of uncertainty in the song. There's a perfect tonal shift, though, with that song into Burning Down the House instrumental, another stripped back song, originally featuring vocals from George Clinton of Parliament Funkadelic fame. It's still a hell of a funky cut, even without the vocals. Lots of bass, and the main groove is, sort of mysterious, almost creeping as it bounces along. It ends dissolving into sort of spooky piano. Spontaneous instrumental, Flowers from the spaciness left in the wake. It's definitely a feel-good song. It's got a real feel-good vibe. The vocals by Little Dragon in the original pump that feel-good vibe up a notch, but this is, still a fun version. And side one. Side two opens with Takashi, which I will definitely say, it starts off a little soft and slow, but it ramps up into a downright banger, and I'll for sure say it's fun. It's one of my favorites. One of my favorite electronic songs in general, but it's definitely one of my favorite songs on the album. It's just, like I said, real fun, and the motif that kind of pops in the second half, it's some good stuff. It makes you want to, if you don't want to at least get up, you're going to be moving your head, tapping your toes, something. It gets in you. And there's a few more anime samples that kind of show up in the latter portion of the song. Pilgrim Side-Eye is much more chaotic and discordant sounding. It's, like I got me thinking, wow, this is like the FlyLo of years gone by. Disjointed instrumentation and seemingly random sound effects. But it's a brief track. All Spies, the following song, is much more traditional, as far as Flying Lotus goes, traditional electronic hip-hop, a traditional electronic hip-hop beat. I could easily imagine a lot of different rappers rhyming over this, it's nothing too left field. It's still a fun song. Yellow Belly, instrumental, is another somewhat left of center beat. The original features raps by Tierra Whack. And this beat is, honestly, with all due respect, kind of just that, whack, but in the best way possible. It's fun, quirky, even a little goofy, but, yeah, a little whack. Black Balloon's Reprise, instrumental, includes an oft-used sample from the early 70s animated film Fantastic Planet. It's a very fun, creative, spooky beat with lots of different sections and feels. The original, featuring raps by Denzel Curry, is actually a highlight of the original album for me, but it's nice to hear all the background sound effects stand out on this edition. And side 2. Side 3 begins with Fire is Coming instrumental, which begins with some rather chilling piano and some spacey sounds, but interestingly enough, it isn't entirely instrumental, as a portion of the David Lynch narration from the original is still present before the beat actually drops. But it is a fun beat. It's danceable. Fire is coming, fire in the streets. It's good. It's good. But no. Inside Your Home, the follow-up, is another track that I would say harkens back to the FlyLo of years past. IDM, intelligent dance music, I believe is what they call it. Uniquely creative electronic music that isn't based on recycling a single musical idea ad infinitum, but actually expanding and juxtaposing multiple ideas over the course of a song. The transition into actually virtual instrumental is instant. 1 second you're, in this jaunty beat, and then all of a sudden, boom, percussion drop. But yeah, this version definitely. It originally has vocals by Shabazz Palaces, but this is definitely a little bit lacking on this version because it's just the kind of percussion going pretty much the whole time. Andromeda, the next song, is a really cool song. Subtly jazzy. It does at least give me the imagery of, like a satellite or a space station kind of drifting through space, stars in the distance. Yeah, no, it's good stuff. Remind You begins with some soft piano and subdued instrumentation before, again, a very cool song just kind of jumps out at you. It's fun, but still somewhat subdued, driven by the bass riff. There's lots of cool sound effects sprinkled throughout. Next track, Say Something. Honestly, it sounds like it could replace the Jeopardy theme. It feels like the whole time you're just trying to remember something. But no, it's still it's a very good song still. Debbie Is Depressed. The next track is a down tempo, downbeat tune, perfect for a late night listen. Very relaxed instrumentation. And interestingly, the vocals are still present on this instrumental edition. Go figure. Find Your Own Way Home is another spacey song driven by keyboards and wordless vocals. Very cool, though. And side 3. To which side 4 begins with The Climb instrumental, which originally features vocals from Thundercat. And the original on the regular edition of the album is probably the highlight of the whole album for me, but this version is still great. A lot of the positive, feel-good energy of the song is still intact, and really the keyboards shine in this edition. Without Thundercat's vocals, they are the stars of the song. Pygmy is a short but unique track, full of samples and sound effects that make it sound primitive and of the jungle, yet still progressive and like it was meticulously put together. 9 Carats instrumental kind of bursts out and quickly settles into a groove that pulls you right in. The original features vocal contributions from Toro y Moi, I believe maybe I'm pronouncing that right. Right, wrong, I don't know. But this version loses none of the balance, only perhaps a little of the vocal soul. It's still fantastic. The song goes through a couple of really cool changes, different sections that have their own character and flavor. FF4 is a hard-hitting but still almost delicate-sounding beat. Quite short as well. Perfect tone to lead into Land of Honey instrumental. Another track stripped of vocal contributions, in this case from Solange. The original with her vocals is another highlight of the regular album for me. Easily one of my favorite tracks. And this instrumental is still superb. It's such a gripping beat. There's some subtle psychedelic effects abound. It's a killer song. Strings take the dramatics up a level. It's with the rhythm, the marching. It's like you're marching to the end of the universe. At a point, that's how I feel listening to this song. Thank You, Malcolm begins with some bass and then just blows up into a gripping instrumental. It sounds like live drums to me, at least. I don't know if all of it's live, or even if they are, but it sounds that way to me. And it's, like I said, a short song. Hot Oct, I'm assuming October. It's abbreviated Hot October. Closes the album with some piano and somewhat distorted vocals. Again, I find it interesting that the vocals are present on this instrumentals album. But the piano and sung vocals fade away, and then there's another distorted, almost watery voice speaking, and then distant tones that rise and fade into nothingness as side 4 comes to an end. So this this album, again, like I said, is fantastic. I mean, again, I would recommend listening to the original first and foremost, because it's, got voices that are great. Thundercat's not to be missed. Solange is certainly not to be missed. But no, this is still a super interesting listen. Really lets certain elements of the songs that you might miss out otherwise shine through. And this is actually a special. I don't know if it was issued in a non-special edition, but it's a special edition issue that includes I don't know if you can see it all, an animated slip mat. I always hate when they say animated, slip mat or any animated label BS, because really it's not animated. It's just that when it spins, it looks like it. But if we take this out of the sleeve here, there's a really cool vinyl slip mat. That looks really cool, and it spins all the way around. But yeah, there's the front cover again. Very unique artwork of Flying Lotus's head on fire. And here we have the back cover. I'm not sure who did the art for this. I'm gonna see if I can find it in the liner notes before I post the video, and I'll make sure to credit them in the comments. And there's some very cool artwork on the inner sleeves too. Here's the inner sleeve for the first record. This sort of ghostly butterfly. It's got the tracks listed on there. Inner sleeve for the second record. A very menacing eye. Track info. And it looks like more liner notes, so maybe it says in here who did the art. Artwork by Winston Hacking. Good job, Winston. But yeah, it sounds good. The vinyl cut by Bo Thomas sounds great. And I know there was also a white vinyl edition issued, even more special than my special edition. But that's okay. My vinyl sounds just as good. But I was really, I was very pleased when Flamagra first came out. I've been a fan of Flying Lotus for almost 10 years now. And he, his last album, his last few albums, honestly, have all been quality. Flamagra, You're Dead. That album I still listen to fairly often. Until the Quiet Comes, he really, and even stuff like Captain Murphy, which isn't necessarily gonna blow you away, but is still really fun. He's got, like I said at the beginning, quite a body of work. Yeah, this video is definitely starting to go on long, so I better get this down to a close. As far as rating the instrumental Flamagra album, again, it's really hard to rate it too high, but, since there's the regular full edition with everything, but it is still a super great vinyl, a super great listening experience. I wouldn't hesitate to give this like a heavy 6, a light 7. I'm gonna go with a 7 out of 10 on this, because this is some good stuff. So, what do you think about Flying Lotus? What do you think about Flamagra? Let me know in the comments below. Have you heard this album instrumental edition? Have you heard the regular edition? Let's talk about it. Comment below, do that like thing, all that stupid YouTube stuff, and yeah, thanks for watching. We'll talk next time, or I'll talk at you, yeah, this has been Flying Lotus, Flamagra. Music is the best.